The cell stank of iron and oil. The chains had been forged for beasts twice his size, yet they cut into his wrists as though to remind him of his place. A man, nothing more, dangling from cold hooks in a room meant to erase dignity. On the other side of the bars, they gathered. Tall, scaled, their hides glistening under the pale lamps of the warship's brig. They came not to interrogate, not yet. They came to look. To laugh. "See how it sags," one hissed in their clicking tongue, teeth sharp as chisels. "A soft thing. Breaks easy. Bleeds too much." Another leaned closer to the bars, nostrils flaring. "And yet they say it fought. I see no fighter. I see meat." The human lifted his head. Blood dried against his cheek. One eye swollen shut, the other steady. He looked at them, unblinking. A faint curl pulled at the edge of his lip. A smile, barely there, but unmistakable. The laughter faltered. Only for a moment. But they all felt it. The warship thrummed with the heartbeat of engines, dragging its chains of conquest across the stars. The empire of the Veyrak had broken world after world, stripping species of their illusions of resistance. No one had lasted. No one had smiled. The guard captain clamped his claws against the bars. "You grin at us, pray?" His voice was gravel, sharp with contempt. "You dangle in your filth and you dare?" The man's smile widened by the smallest fraction. He did not speak. It was the silence that needled them. Silence when he should have begged. Silence when the rules of the hunt demanded whimpering. Their laughter returned, but thinner now, forced around the edges. The guards left him in the dark, though not without a final flourish, a lash that split skin from his back. The man did not cry out. He leaned his head against the wall, eyes closed, and the smile remained. Across the ship, the tale began to spread. The fragile thing in the brig. The one who grinned. By the time the story reached the officer's table, it had already twisted into a kind of challenge. Commander Threx, scales burnished with age and victories, sneered over his goblet. "Let it grin. Tomorrow it will break." They all break. Pain is universal. Flesh does not lie. But one of his lieutenants, younger and sharper, frowned. It grinned while chained. Not when it struck, not when it killed, but when beaten. That is not prey behavior. Then it is madness. Threx dismissed the thought with a wave. And madness burns out quickly. They did not know. The night dragged on in the brig. Footsteps echoed, sometimes pausing to peer at the man. He never begged water. Never asked for mercy. He only breathed, slow and steady, with that same faint curve of the lips. When dawn, or what passed for dawn aboard the vessel, came, they brought him out. Shackles across wrists and ankles, chains dragging against the steel. He was marched into the chamber of demonstration, a pit where captives were paraded before the crew, their wills broken for sport. Hundreds of eyes watched from the tiers above. Warriors, soldiers, crewmen. Their voices rolled in a chorus of jeers. At the center of the pit, they stripped his chains from the ceiling and forced him to stand. He swayed but did not fall. His back was a canvas of blood. His chest rose and fell with calm defiance. The arena master stepped forward, flanked by beasts bred for pain, hulking things, claws wet with venom. "Here is the human," the master declared, his voice amplified. One of the last taken from the ash of Terra. Watch and see how thin their myths are. Watch as pain unmakes it. The beasts lunged. Claws tore skin, teeth sank deep. The man buckled but did not scream. His breath hitched once, twice, then steadied again. Blood soaked the floor. He raised his head, face pale, lips trembling. And then, he smiled. The crowd's roar faltered. The sound collapsed in pockets, replaced by a silence that spread like oil. The beasts clawed again, furious, but the man laughed, soft, wet, broken, but laughter all the same. For the first time in 1,000 conquests, the predators of the Veyrak felt a crack in their certainty. This was not prey. Prey did not laugh with blood in its throat. Prey did not smile when ripped apart. The beasts drew back, unsettled. The arena master barked orders, but the fear was already blooming in the air, a taste no warrior could deny. The man swayed, eyes closing for a heartbeat. He looked up at the tears, at hundreds of eyes that had expected despair. And he whispered, just loud enough to carry on the amplifiers. Not enough. The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time, the Veyrak understood that pain could be resisted. That flesh could defy them not with strength, not with claws, but with something deeper. They looked at one another, unsettled. The commander rose from his seat, voice sharp. Break him! The beasts lunged again. Chains whipped across his chest. Bones cracked. Yet the man's lips never lost their curve. The smile became something more, a weapon. In the galleries above, a soldier whispered to another. If one can laugh, what of the rest? The question spread like infection. And in the pit, as the man collapsed to one knee, blood pooling beneath him, he raised his head again. His good eye locked on Commander Threx. The smile widened. The commander froze. For a heartbeat, he thought absurdly, impossibly, that the fragile creature was smiling at him. Not in submission. Not in madness. But in challenge. Threx felt something he had not felt in decades. A chill under his scales. The beast struck again, and the chamber filled with motion, with claws and fury. The human vanished beneath it all. When the frenzy ended, the pit floor was red. The beasts paced, restless, looking to the master. And then, movement. The man rose. Slowly. Shaking, broken, barely standing. But standing. His teeth showed in the blood on his lips. The audience, for the first time in the Empire's long memory, was silent. The man lifted his hand, trembling, and pointed straight at the commander. And with that same ragged voice, he spoke. Your turn. The chamber erupted. Some shouted, some recoiled, but none could unsee it. The prisoner who should have died 10 times already, still smiling, still standing, daring the predators of the galaxy to come closer. Commander Threx's claws dug into the railing. His jaw locked. He could not answer. Because deep inside, beneath rage and pride, he knew what he had seen. And what it meant. The beasts turned toward the man again, claws lifting for the kill. The crowd held its breath. And then, the lights across the chamber flickered. The ship shuddered once, twice, as though something massive had just collided outside. The Veyrak looked up, confused. The man only smiled wider. The lights sputtered overhead, weak arcs of blue that made the chamber's shadows twist like smoke. The crowd shifted uneasily, their guttural voices rolling into a wave of confusion. Warships of the Veyrak did not shudder. They were hunters, forged in the core furnaces of dying suns. Nothing struck them without warning. Nothing dared. Commander Threx's mandibles clicked once, sharply, a sound that silenced the chamber. Hold your places. Systems falter, nothing more. But beneath his certainty, a thread of unease coiled. His instincts, honed across a lifetime of conquest, did not believe in coincidence. He felt the ripple of something moving outside the ship, unseen. At the center of the pit, the prisoner staggered forward a step. His feet left red prints in the dust. His head lifted, his smile steady. Not systems, he rasped, voice barely more than breath. Visitors. The word rolled across the amplifiers, quiet but sharp enough to cut the crowd's silence. Every alien in the chamber looked toward him, as if prey had just spoken prophecy. The beasts circled him again, snarling, ordered to tear him apart once and for all. But for the first time, their movements carried hesitation. Their prey was wrong. Their prey was standing. And outside, the ship trembled again. The arena master barked for control. End him. Now. The creatures lunged, claws flashing in the half-light. The man did not move to defend. He let them strike, let their blades split skin and crack bone. His body folded, but not his gaze. He stared at the commander, blood spilling from his lips, smiling as though he bore witness to some joke only he understood. And then the ship groaned. A low, guttural sound, as if the void itself pressed against its hull. The deck plates rattled. Somewhere distant, alarms began to wail. The beasts faltered mid-strike. The guards on the tiers above glanced toward exits. The crowd murmured, unease spreading like a contagion. Commander Threx snarled. Stand your ground. There is nothing beyond us. But the prisoner laughed, soft, broken, bubbling with blood. His good eye shone with something the predators had never seen in prey. Not terror. Not despair. Something sharper. Hope. The word burned unspoken in their minds, corrosive and alien. The chamber doors blasted open. Smoke rolled in, black and acrid. A squad of guards stumbled through, their armor shredded, their claws trembling. They're coming, one croaked. The humans. They. The soldier collapsed, throat torn. Silence followed, thick and absolute. The crowd recoiled. The arena that had always been a theater of dominance now felt like a trap. Warriors glanced at one another, the cracks in their arrogance spreading wider with every heartbeat. At the pit's center, the prisoner lifted his chin. Blood matted his hair, his body broken, but his voice carried clear. I told you, he said. Visitors. The smoke parted, and from the shadows of the corridor, the sound of boots striking steel echoed. Not claws. Not talons. Boots. Heavy, deliberate, unhurried. The Veyrak had never feared the sound of prey's footsteps. Until now. Commander Threx's hand tightened on the rail. He forced his voice to steady. Contain it. Seal the doors. Kill the human before they see him. But no one moved. The guards hesitated. The beasts snarled, confused. The crowd, for the first time, looked less like an army and more like a mob. The prisoner smiled through blood and broken teeth. The boots drew closer. Each step measured, relentless, echoing across the chamber like the ticking of a countdown. The lights flickered again, once, twice, and then the entire arena plunged into darkness. The last thing anyone saw before the black swallowed them was the prisoner, standing broken in the pit, smiling as though he had been waiting for this exact moment all along. And then, screams. The darkness swallowed the chamber whole. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Predators who had feasted on worlds, who had slaughtered entire populations without pause, stood frozen in silence. Then came the first scream. A wet, ragged thing cut short by the crack of bone. Something heavy slammed into the deck. The crowd surged backward, the illusion of order dissolving into panic. The Varak could see nothing. Their vision, honed for the glow of burning cities and battlefield fires, failed in the pure black. They slashed at shadows, claws finding only empty air. And then light. Not steady. Not comforting. White flares snapped alive at the chamber's edges, harsh and unnatural, burning into the alien's eyes. Shapes moved within that glare. Boots. They advanced in silence, black silhouettes against the flares, weapons raised. The crowd hissed and retreated, their voices sharp with sudden unease. Commander Threx bared his fangs, forcing strength into his voice. They are few. Break them. But no one moved. The silence of the intruders pressed heavier than any roar. The Varak were predators, used to prey, shrieking, running, pleading. These shapes gave nothing. Not a shout, not a word. Just boots striking steel, closer, closer. From the pit, the prisoner raised his head. Blood dripped down his jaw, yet the smile remained. He whispered, too soft for the crowd, but loud enough for the amplifiers to catch. Told you. The beasts shrieked and lunged first, desperate to restore the order of things. They bounded into the light, claws raised. Gunfire answered. Sharp, mechanical, thunderous. The sound was alien to Varak ears, a percussive violence unlike anything their claws or blades could summon. The beasts jerked mid-stride, bodies torn open, venom spilling across the floor. The crowd recoiled as the shapes stepped through the fading smoke, armor scarred and patched, helmets blank, visors black. They did not march with elegance. They moved like weight itself, heavy and inevitable. And still, they were silent. One soldier raised a weapon toward the tiers, firing in short bursts. Precision strikes. Varak warriors fell screaming, their scales no armor against the intruder's fire. Panic spread, a tide no commander could command. Threx roared above the chaos. Fight! Fight, damn you! But his warriors had never faced an enemy that refused to acknowledge fear. The silence of the humans was worse than screams. It was worse than laughter. It was judgment. In the pit, the prisoner staggered toward the edge. Chains rattled at his ankles, dragging through the blood. His body was broken, but when he reached the wall, a hand shot down to him. A human hand, gloved, steady. The prisoner took it. They hauled him from the pit, his chains scraping against stone. For the first time since his capture, he stood among his own again. Bloodied, broken, but smiling wider than ever. Threx saw it from the gallery and felt his chest tighten. That smile was no longer for mockery. It was recognition. It was belonging. The Veyrak commander bared his teeth, refusing to yield. He leapt from the gallery into the pit, claws drawn, eyes locked on the prisoner. "You are mine," he roared. The nearest soldier swung his weapon toward him, but the prisoner lifted a hand. Even shattered, his voice carried sharp. "No." The soldier froze, lowering the weapon. The prisoner's gaze never left Threx. The commander landed hard, claws gouging the deck. He was larger, armored by nature, bred to kill with speed and power. He towered over the human, whose body leaned on his comrades just to stand. But still, he smiled. Threx lunged. The prisoner did not flinch. He did not raise a fist, did not dodge. He let the commander come, claws flashing toward his throat. And at the last instant, another human stepped forward. A blade flashed, low and brutal. The commander howled, stumbling back, ichor spilling from a cut across his thigh. The humans advanced as one, weapons raised, unrelenting. The prisoner straightened, voice hoarse but cutting through the chaos. "You thought pain would break us. It forged us." Threx's eyes widened. The words struck harder than the blade. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be prey. Around him, the chamber dissolved into madness. Veyrak fled through doors that sealed too late. Gunfire echoed against the steel. The predators of the galaxy screamed as shadows moved among them, quiet and merciless. The prisoner leaned heavier against his comrade's shoulder, blood soaking his chains. His smile did not falter. He whispered to the soldier at his side, just loud enough to be heard. "Not enough." The soldier turned his visor toward him, unreadable. Then, with a nod, he raised a hand signal. The flares burned brighter. More boots struck the steel outside the chamber. More shadows entered, weapons in hand. The Veyrak had taken prey. But now the prey had come back. And they were many. Commander Threx staggered, clutching his wound. He roared again, but this time there was no chorus to follow. The roar cracked into silence. Above them, deep in the warship's spine, another alarm sounded. Not for boarding. Not for fire. For something far worse. The core was destabilizing. The alarm was not like the others. It wasn't sharp, not commanding, it was a dirge. A low, unbroken tone that sank into the bones of the ship. Every Veyrak in the chamber knew it, though most had never heard it in truth. Core destabilization. The death knell of a vessel too proud to admit its own fragility. The crowd froze. Then, like a dam breaking, panic surged. Warriors shoved past one another, claws scraping against steel, howls echoing as they fled the chamber in a tide of armored bodies. Predators who had never turned their backs now scrambled for escape, each voice sharper, more desperate than the last. Commander Threx stood his ground in the pit, chest heaving, blood slicking his thigh. He bared his fangs at the retreating swarm. Cowards! It is prey tricks, lies. His voice cracked against the alarm's unrelenting drone. But even as he roared, his eyes flicked upward toward the ceiling, as if he could feel the heat building in the bowels of the ship. The humans did not move with panic. They advanced with the same deliberate silence as before, spreading out across the chamber, weapons raised. Some guarded the exits, cutting down fleeing Veyrak with precision. Others circled the pit, rifles trained on the commander. And at their center, the prisoner stood. Barely upright, his chains dragging, but his smile unbroken. His comrade's hand kept him steady, yet he waved the support away, taking one staggering step forward on his own. Running, he rasped. His voice scraped across the amplifiers, low and steady. "I thought you never ran." Threx's claws clenched, rage boiling in the cracks of fear. He dropped from his stance and advanced, limping but lethal. His eyes locked on the prisoner. "You will die here, human." His words dripped venom. "Broken. Forgotten. Your fire will burn out in silence." The prisoner tilted his head, blood dripping from his chin. "Then come try." The humans did not interfere. They let the space open, let predator and prey face each other in the pit. But the tension was wrong. The balance had shifted. Threx felt it even before he lunged, the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes, the certainty that the duel was no longer spectacle, but judgment. He struck with speed born of instinct, claws flashing toward the human's throat. The prisoner didn't flinch. He moved too slow, too battered to defend. And yet, he smiled. Threx's claws connected only to glance off metal. A soldier had stepped between them, blade raised, intercepting the strike. Sparks hissed. The soldier did not speak. He only shoved Threx back with strength that rattled his bones. The prisoner coughed blood, laughing weakly. "Told you. Not alone." The commander's rage curdled into something colder. He realized the truth too late. This wasn't prey rising against predator. This was a pack. And the prisoner was not their weakness. He was their signal. The ship groaned beneath their feet, the dirge of the alarm rising. Dust sifted from the ceilings. Somewhere far below, the core ate itself alive. Threx slashed again, wild, desperate. The soldier blocked once more, another rifle fired above, and the commander staggered back, ichor spilling from new wounds. His eyes darted around the chamber, searching for allies. There were none. Only shadows with rifles. Only silence. And the prisoner, smiling. The heat pressed against the walls now, faint but growing, a reminder that time was running out. The Veyrak commander knew this ship was his crown, his legacy, his unbreakable fortress. And now it was dying around him. "No," his voice cracked as he stumbled back. "No, you cannot." The prisoner cut him off, his voice low, iron in its steadiness. "We can. Because we don't stop." Threx's chest heaved. His claws trembled. For the first time, the predator understood the depth of the gulf between them. It wasn't strength. It wasn't claws or armor. It was refusal. A refusal to break, even when broken. The prisoner lifted his head higher, blood-streaked lips curling. Pain isn't the end. It's the fuel. The dirge blared louder, echoing through the chamber, drowning out the commander's ragged breaths. From somewhere deep in the ship, a new sound joined the alarm, a metallic shriek, the scream of rupturing hull. The deck shuddered violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The warship was tearing itself apart. The humans moved in unison, dragging the prisoner toward the exits, weapons raised to cover the retreat. Threx roared, staggering forward one last time, determined to carve his legacy into flesh. But when he lunged, a single shot cracked across the chamber. The commander froze mid-stride, ichor blooming from his chest. His breath rattled, claws trembling as he stared down at the wound. His eyes lifted to the prisoner. The human smile was waiting for him. Threx collapsed, his roar fading into silence. The chamber shook again, harder, splitting stone, tearing steel. The humans surged for the exit, dragging their broken comrade with them. The alarm's dirge wailed its final warning. And then an explosion ripped through the decks above, light flooding down like the breath of a star. The warship was dying. The warship groaned like a dying beast. Metal screamed, tearing open in the decks above, vomiting fire into the corridors. Smoke rolled down the halls, thick and black, carrying the stench of burning scale and melted steel. The humans moved through it without hesitation. Boots slammed against the deck, rifles raised, visors blank. They weren't fast, not elegant or fluid like the predators of the galaxy. They were heavy. Relentless. Each step carried weight, as if the ship itself bowed beneath their persistence. At their center, chained and shattered, the prisoner stumbled forward. Two soldiers bore his weight, dragging him when his knees buckled, steadying him when his lungs rattled with blood. His head lolled once, twice, then lifted again. His smile had not left. Behind them, the corpse of Commander Threx still smoked in the pit. His death cry lingered in the walls like an echo that refused to fade. The corridors crawled with panic. Verak warriors, predators once feared across systems, now fled like cattle, claws scrabbling against the walls, voices shrill with terror. Some barreled headlong into the humans, driven by blind instinct. None survived the collision. Bullets answered claws. Silence followed screams. The prisoner coughed blood, his chest rattling. His voice, ragged but steady, broke the hush between gunfire. "You hear them?" He staggered as he spoke, smile cracked with blood. "They sound just like us." One soldier glanced at him, visor unreadable, but gave no reply. Words were wasted here. Breath was survival. The warship shuddered again, throwing sparks from the ceiling. The dirge of the alarm still moaned, joined now by the higher shriek of venting atmosphere. Pressure doors clamped down across the halls, sealing compartments with a thunder that rattled bones. The squad pressed forward, rifles chewing open doors, cutting down those who stood in their way. Always forward. Always toward escape. The prisoner dragged his feet, body broken beyond repair, but he would not fall. Every step he forced, every bloody smile he gave, pressed deeper into the Verak's terror. Warriors who saw him clung to the walls, unwilling to attack. Their eyes locked on his smile, wide and pale against the blood. It was no longer just defiance. It was prophecy. The humans reached the hangar decks. The vast space was chaos, ships half-fueled, crews shrieking orders, warriors trampling one another in their scramble for escape. Shuttles buckled under the weight of too many bodies. Gunfire cracked in the distance as officers turned on their own soldiers for space. The humans stepped into the storm. And the storm stilled. Predators froze at the sight of them. Some hissed, claws trembling, but none advanced. The silence pressed down until even the engines seemed to stutter. The prisoner coughed, spat blood, and lifted his head. "Go on," he rasped, voice carrying like a blade. "Run." The words cut through the chamber sharper than any rifle. Entire packs of Verak turned, shoving for their ships, desperate to escape the weight of that broken voice. But escape was no longer certain. The warship shuddered again, harder, splitting beams and tearing open the hangar roof. Flames roared, consuming ships still on their clamps. The deck split down its center, dragging shuttles into the firestorm below. One soldier pointed upward. Through the rent in the ceiling, stars burned, cold, clear, unreachable. Move! The squad surged, dragging the prisoner toward a shuttle still intact on the far side of the hangar. Gunfire snapped as Varak commanders, desperate to salvage pride, tried to rally their troops. A dozen predators charged, fangs bared. The humans met them head-on. Rifles roared. Blades flashed. The clash was brutal, close, loud enough to drown the dirge. Ichor splattered across armor. Claws scraped against helmets. One soldier fell, chest torn open, but the line did not break. The prisoner stood amid the storm, swaying, bleeding. His voice rose again, hoarse but unbroken. Not enough. The words echoed louder than the alarm. Warriors stumbled mid-strike, hesitation seizing their limbs. They faltered at the sight of prey that refused to fall. And in that heartbeat, hesitation became defeat. The charging Varak scattered, clawing for ships that no longer waited. The squad pressed forward, hauling the prisoner to the shuttle's ramp. The engines whined, fire licking its wings, but it stood one fragile promise of escape amid the collapsing tomb. The prisoner turned his head, eye locking on the predators who watched from the shadows, trembling. His lips curled once more, blood streaking his teeth. "Your empire," he whispered, "ends with a smile." The ramp sealed behind him. The engine screamed, lifting the shuttle from the burning deck. Below, the warship's spine snapped, fire consuming the hangar in a flood of light. The humans broke free into the void, dragging their broken comrade with them. And in the silence of the stars, the warship of Commander Threk's, flagship of the Varak hunt, split in two. Its death cry echoed across the calms of fleeing predators, a sound no Varak had ever imagined they would hear, their own fortress, their own certainty, torn apart. The shuttle's hull rattled under the shockwave. Inside, the prisoner lay half-conscious, chained wrists folded in his lap. Blood pooled at his side. His eye fluttered open. Still smiling. And then his lips parted, whispering something the others barely caught. Not enough. The words chilled the room. Because for the humans, survival was never the end. It was only the beginning. The pilot's voice broke through, tight with urgency. "We've got pursuit. Varak ships vectoring in. Too many. They'll cut us apart before we reach the fleet." The prisoner's eye slid open wider. The smile twitched again. Then, he coughed blood, voice raw but sharp, "We bleed them too." The shuttle groaned as it cut through the void, engines howling at their limit. The interior stank of fuel and blood, the air heavy with heat from overstressed systems. Panels flickered, throwing the cabin into pulses of green and red. The squad sat in silence. Helmets off now, faces pale and drawn, sweat streaking through grime. They did not cheer. They did not speak of victory. They only breathed, weapons across their knees, eyes sharp toward the bulkhead as if the walls themselves might tear open. At the center, strapped against the bulkhead, the prisoner slumped. His chest rose shallow, each breath a rattle. Chains still bound his wrists, though no one had moved to cut them. It wasn't mistrust. It was ritual. He had entered the brig in chains, and somehow, leaving them on felt truer than removing them. Blood darkened his uniform, soaked into the seat beneath him. His good eye was half closed. But the smile, that impossible, jagged smile, remained. A soldier leaned close, voice hushed. "We have to stabilize him." Another shook his head. "We don't have the kit." "He won't." The prisoner's voice cracked through the hush, soft but sharp enough to cut them off. "Save it." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. His eye flicked open, catching theirs. "Every drop bought something. Don't waste it." The squad fell silent again. No protest, no comfort. They understood. From the cockpit, the pilot's voice came back, tight with strain. "2 signatures on pursuit. Heavy frigates. They're running hot, closing fast." The squad straightened. No panic. Just readiness. Weapons clicked, magazines checked. Each movement was deliberate, practiced, but beneath it all lingered the unspoken truth: they were outgunned, outnumbered, half dead already. The prisoner chuckled, a low, broken sound. "Good." One soldier turned to him, frowning. "Good?" His smile widened. "Means they're afraid. They don't send frigates for scraps." The words hung in the cabin. It was absurd. It was madness. But in the silence that followed, a few of them felt it, that strange, corrosive seed of hope that had unnerved the Varak themselves. The prisoner closed his eye again, voice fading to a rasp. "Let them come. We'll bleed them, too." The shuttle jolted hard, throwing sparks from the ceiling. Warning klaxons screamed. "Contact," the pilot shouted. "They've locked weapons." Through the viewport, the void lit up with fire. Plasma bolts streaked past, carving space in molten arcs. One slammed against the shuttle's flank, rattling the hull, filling the cabin with the stink of scorched metal. The soldiers braced, helmets snapping back into place, visors sealing. The prisoner slumped forward against his restraints, blood dripping down his chin. He whispered through the pain, a ghost of a grin still twisting his lips. "Still not enough." The soldiers exchanged glances. And something shifted. Their grips tightened on rifles. Their breathing steadied. If a broken man in chains could laugh in the jaws of death, then what excuse did they have to falter? The pilot's voice broke through, breathless. "We can't outrun them. They'll tear us apart before we reach the fleet." A pause followed, heavy. No one spoke. Then the prisoner's voice rasped again. "Turn." The pilot hesitated. "Turn? We're in a shuttle." "Turn," the prisoner said again, firmer, though blood bubbled from the word. His eye opened, staring through the smoke. "Face them." The squad looked to one another. Not disbelief. Not fear. Only the quiet acknowledgement of men and women who had long ago accepted death, and decided it was theirs to wield. The pilot's hand shook once on the controls. Then he nodded, jaw set. The shuttle banked hard, metal screaming, engines flaring until the cabin rattled. The stars spun. And there, through the cracked viewport, the 2 frigates loomed hulking shadows, their weapons glowing, their engines burning bright. The prisoner's lips peeled back, his smile feral now. "Let's teach them." His voice broke into a cough, but he forced the words out anyway. What prey does when cornered. The frigates opened fire. The shuttle dove headlong into the storm. The bridge of the Varak frigate was a cathedral of steel and shadow. The commander stood at its heart, claws wrapped around the railing, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The prey shuttle blazed across the grid like a wounded ember, reckless, erratic, bleeding power from every vector. He sneered. Cornered vermin. End this. Weapons crews obeyed without hesitation. Lances of plasma arced outward, carving the void into ribbons of fire. Each blast should have vaporized the human craft. Each shot missed by a margin too narrow to dismiss as chance. The commander's crest twitched. Adjust targeting. Predictive lock. Again the guns spoke. Again the ember slipped through, weaving like it was guided by madness, or something worse. The second officer leaned close, voice careful. They're not fleeing, Commander. They're advancing. The words were absurd. The commander hissed, baring his fangs. A crippled shuttle cannot advance against warships. They're only prolonging the inevitable. But the bridge crew saw it too. The prey was charging them. On the tactical screen, the shuttle's heat signature burned hotter, its engines overloading, frames shuddering under impossible strain. It was suicide. No sane being would attempt it. Which meant it was something else. The commander's claws dug into the railing. Hold fire. Let them come closer. The crew froze, confused. Now, he growled. I want to see their faces when the void swallows them. The viewport filled with the battered craft. Its hull peeled in places, sparks trailing into space like fireflies. Through cracked plating, they glimpsed the humans within, helmets reflecting plasma light, weapons ready, eyes fixed forward. And then they saw him. The prisoner. Even through fractured glass and swirling fire, the sight was unmistakable. Bound. Broken. Slumped in his seat. And smiling. That smile cut through the void, more chilling than any weapon. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't madness. It was worse. It was certainty. A murmur rippled across the bridge. Someone whispered, "Why is he smiling?" The commander snapped his gaze around. Silence. His voice cracked with more force than he intended. He turned back, claws tapping the railing, eyes narrowing on that single impossible expression. The prey shouldn't smile. Not here. Not now. Not at the edge of annihilation. The commander's jaw clenched. He tried to summon the old words, prey is weak, prey is fragile, prey breaks. But the words sounded thin in his skull, hollow, like lies spoken to children. The shuttle closed the distance. Close enough now that its ruinous state was undeniable. It should have been drifting, silent, long dead. Instead it burned brighter, louder, fiercer. The second officer's voice broke the silence again, lower now. Commander, why aren't they afraid? The commander opened his mouth, ready to snarl, ready to remind them of their place. But his throat tightened. No words came. On the viewport, the shuttle tilted. Not drifting, not spiraling. Choosing. Its nose pointed directly at them, engines screaming, hull flaring with the heat of sacrifice. The prisoner's grin widened. The commander felt it then, cold, alien to him, gnawing at the edges of his certainty. Something he had never once felt in all his years of conquest. Dread. The crew turned to him, waiting, eyes wide. The moment stretched. And then the shuttle fired. The void lit up in silence. A single burst from the shuttle's cannons, too small, too weak to matter, slammed into the frigate's shield array. Sparks crawled across the cruiser's flank like lightning under glass. Harmless. Insignificant. Then the shuttle hit. Metal shrieked, hull against hull, engines burning hotter than their casings could hold. The shuttle's nose drove into the frigate's armor, tearing open plating like wet parchment. Fire vented into the stars. Inside, the soldiers braced as gravity inverted. Their world flipped end over end. Panels tore loose, cables whipped across the cabin. Screams were drowned by the roar of rupturing metal. The pilot's hands locked on the controls, blood smearing across them as alarms howled in every register. The prisoner hung in his restraints, body jerking with each impact, blood spraying from his mouth. And still, the smile stayed. The frigate buckled under the strike. Its shields collapsed in a bloom of sparks, power grids overloading in a chain reaction that cascaded down the vessel's spine. On the bridge, officers were thrown from their stations. The commander slammed to the deck, claws gouging steel as smoke and fire poured across his command. Containment breach, someone screamed. Shut it down. Shut. The words died as a wall of flame devoured the console. In the shuttle, the pilot wrestled the controls free, thrusters spitting out their last breath. They tore sideways, scraping along the frigate's surface, spinning free as the massive warship bloomed with fire. One soldier shouted over the chaos, visor cracked, voice ragged. "We didn't kill it. We barely scratched it." The prisoner coughed, blood bubbling down his chin, voice raw but steady. "You don't kill them, you remind them they can die." The words cut through the panic like a blade. The soldiers fell silent, even as the shuttle tumbled. Outside the viewport, the frigate staggered, its once impossible silhouette now limping, fire venting from ruptured seams. It was alive, but wounded. Wounded in a way predators weren't meant to be. The second frigate loomed behind, engines flaring. It had seen everything. Its weapons primed, power surging into the lances that would finish the crippled prey once and for all. The pilot slammed a fist into the controls, voice breaking. "We've got nothing left. No shields, no guns, no." The prisoner lifted his head. His one good eye burned like a coal through the blood and ruin. His lips peeled back, a whisper rasping from between broken teeth. "Then give me the shot." The pilot froze. "You can't even stand." The prisoner's smile cut deeper. "Don't need to stand. Just need to aim." The cabin went still. Weapons mag clamps released with sharp clicks. A rifle was passed forward, reverent, like handing over a torch. The prisoner's chained hands trembled as he wrapped his fingers around it. Blood slicked the grip, but he held it firm. The soldiers watched, breath held, as their broken comrade leaned into the weapon, sighting down its scope. His chains rattled, his body swayed. But his eye was steady. Through the cracked viewport, the enemy frigate filled the stars. Its engines glowed bright as a sun, wide open, vulnerable. The prisoner exhaled once, slow, and squeezed the trigger. The shot streaked into the void. A single round, insignificant against the vastness of the enemy. It vanished into the burn of the frigate's drive core. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the stars tore open. The frigate's engines flared too bright, too sudden. Containment ruptured. Fire erupted outward in a blossom that swallowed the void, shredding the warship from its heart. Shards of armor spiraled away like meteors. The blast rolled over the shuttle, tossing it like a toy, alarms screaming as the craft spun uncontrolled through the wreckage. Inside, bodies slammed against bulkheads. Blood smeared across steel. The pilot cursed, fighting the stick with shattered hands. The prisoner sagged back against his restraints, chest heaving, rifle slipping from his grasp. The viewport cleared for a moment, showing only debris, 2 frigates broken, the void scattered with fire. The soldiers stared. Some laughed. Some cried. None could speak. And the prisoner, broken and blood-soaked, let out a rattling chuckle that turned into a cough. He whispered, barely audible, yet every soldier heard him. Still smiling. The shuttle tumbled into the silence, systems failing one by one. Oxygen hissed into nothing. The lights flickered out. And then came the new sound. A proximity alarm. A shape approaching through the debris field. Bigger than a frigate. Shadows darker than the void itself. Predator reinforcements. The soldiers froze, staring out into the growing silhouette. The prisoner tilted his head up, blood running from his mouth, and for the first time since the beginning, his smile faltered. The shuttle was dying. Air hissed through a torn seam in the hull. Panels flickered in and out, sparking weakly before falling silent. The deck pitched and groaned, a wounded beast adrift among the bones of its enemies. The squad worked in the red glow of emergency lights, hands moving fast, desperate, though no one said the word escape. There was nowhere to escape to. No fuel. No comms. No shields. Just the wreck, the dark, and the thing coming closer. The proximity alarm kept pulsing, a dull, heart-like beat. With every throb, the shadow outside grew sharper. One soldier ripped off their helmet, voice ragged. "We can't fight that. Not like this." Another snapped back, "Then what do you want to do? Sit and wait to suffocate?" The prisoner stirred. His restraints were slick with his blood, his head slumped forward. For a moment, they thought he was gone. Then his chest hitched. His lips parted. Quiet. The single word froze them all. His good eye lifted, bloodshot and burning, focused not on them but on the viewport where the shadow advanced. His voice came again, cracked but steady. "They're listening." The soldiers went still, every breath drawn in silence. Beyond the cracked glass, the shape grew colossal, angles sharp enough to wound the stars themselves. Its hull glimmered with the blue burn of ancient alloys. Larger than both frigates combined. A Predator capital ship. Its lights swept the debris field, hunting. The soldiers' hearts pounded loud enough they feared the ship could hear. The prisoner's lips twisted, almost a smile again, though pain carved it thin. They don't understand silence. Only fear. That's why it works. One soldier whispered, too soft to stop himself, "What now?" The prisoner coughed, a wet rattle, and leaned his head back against the bulkhead. His chains clinked with the motion. His answer came in a rasp, words breaking but weighted like iron. Now, we teach them how humans die. The squad glanced at each other. Their helmets reflected red light, their faces drawn but sharp. Something hardened in the silence, a choice they had no right to make but made anyway. Weapons clicked back into readiness. Not for survival. Not for victory. For the simple, terrible act of defiance. The Predator ship's beams swept closer. Pieces of wreckage spun past the viewport, shards of frigates, floating bodies, the corpses of Predators drifting in the void. Each pass of the light was brighter, closer, searching. The prisoner's eye closed, his breathing shallow. For a moment, they thought he'd slipped away again. Then his lips moved, almost soundless. Don't give them the satisfaction. The words landed heavy. Not an order. Not a plea. A truth. The proximity alarm spiked into a scream. The capital ship had found them. A voice, alien and guttural, boomed through the wreck, broadcast across all channels. Mocking, certain. Fragile prey. Surrender. We will take your broken one back, piece by piece. Your deaths will be forgotten. His will be remembered as humiliation. The soldiers stiffened. The voice wasn't speaking to them. It was speaking about him. The prisoner's eye opened again. For the first time, the smile was gone. What replaced it was worse, a hollow, infinite calm. His voice was a whisper, barely more than breath, but every soldier heard it as if it were carved into their bones. They've already lost. The capital ship's lights flared, and a docking clamp extended, a steel arm reaching for the shuttle like the claw of a god. The soldiers braced, rifles raised though useless against a titan. Their breaths synced. And then, on the edge of silence, the prisoner did something none of them expected. He began to laugh. Not a bark, not a chuckle, but a broken, wheezing laugh that spread through the dying shuttle and out into the Predator's channel, cutting through their broadcast like a knife. The alien voice faltered. The docking clamp paused. The laugh kept going. Ragged. Wet. Impossible. A sound that should have meant madness, but instead carried something worse. Certainty. The soldiers tightened their grips. The clamp locked on. And the Predator ship began to pull them in. The docking clamps locked with a groan that reverberated through the wreck. Steel shrieked against steel, and then the shuttle lurched, dragged into the Predator's belly. The soldiers braced in silence, their rifles steady though all of them knew they were aiming at inevitability. The prisoner hung in his chains, chest heaving. Blood seeped from a dozen wounds. His eye flickered open, dull but burning with that same unbearable light. The shuttle's hatch ripped away. The Predators stormed in, the towering, armored, fangs glinting in the light of their warship's heart. They moved with the swagger of hunters who had never once feared prey. The soldiers didn't fire. Not at first. They waited. And then the prisoner laughed again. The Predators froze mid-step. That sound rolled out of him like fire across dry grass, broken, wet, yet somehow unbreakable. It filled the shuttle, bled out into the Predator ship's bay, and echoed up through its decks. The nearest Predator snarled, stepping forward. Enough. His claws raised. The prisoner lifted his head, chains rattling, his smile carved deep through blood and ruin. He whispered, so soft the soldiers could barely hear it, yet somehow the Predators heard it all the same. Watch closely. The soldiers moved. Gunfire ripped the bay apart. The first wave of predators fell before they had even raised their weapons. The air thickened with smoke, with screams, with the stench of blood and fire. The squad fought like the dying, each round spent like breath, every strike a promise that if this was their end, it would not be silent. And in the center, still bound, still broken, the prisoner became the axis. The predators lunged for him, certain that killing the symbol would break the human's will. But every time one reached him, he smiled. And in that smile, they faltered. A claw slowed. A shot went wide. A hesitation that cost lives. The soldiers didn't hesitate. Bodies piled. Smoke billowed. The bay became a slaughterhouse. The prisoner sagged, his body failing. Blood dripped steadily down his chains. His voice rasped one last time, words torn but sharp. You can kill a man. But you can't kill what he teaches you to fear. His head dropped forward. His chest shuddered. The smile stayed. The predators surged, desperate, and raged. They tore through the soldiers one by one, overwhelming with sheer numbers. The humans fell, but none begged, none broke. Each went down firing, faces lit by the echo of their prisoner's grin. When the last rifle fell silent, the bay was choked with smoke and silence. Predator corpses littered the deck, their blood mixing with human. The commander pushed through the haze, his armor scorched, his eyes wide. He stared at the broken body in chains. At the smile that still lingered. Something crawled up his spine. Not triumph. Not relief. Something far colder. Around him, the surviving crew shifted uneasily. Their gazes flicked to the dead. To the prisoner. To the silence that pressed against their ears. No one spoke. And then the commander realized the truth. They had not captured a man. They had captured a message. A warning carved into flesh and blood. That prey could suffer, and still smile. That prey could be broken, and still kill. That prey could die, and still leave fear behind. The commander looked away from the body, but the image burned behind his eyes. That grin. That impossible grin. He knew he would never sleep without seeing it. Whispers spread through the ship in the days that followed. Whispers that grew, that rotted certainty from within. Soldiers muttered that the humans could not be beaten. That chains did not silence them. That pain only sharpened them. The commander silenced none of it. He couldn't. Because he felt it too. In every shadow. In every silence. In every fragile moment before sleep, he felt the weight of that smile. And when war councils gathered, when maps of conquest burned with plans to strike further into human space, the commander's voice faltered. His claws trembled on the railing. Because prey wasn't meant to smile. And once it did, predators learned fear. If that story hit you, don't just scroll. Subscribe, because humanity's fight is only getting started.